Des from Baubles and Bubbles, and we're going to continue today with our kombucha brewing and bottling process. So in the last episode, I showed you my techniques on how to brew, and we're going to go ahead and bottle that batch. So I have 1 gallon kombucha batch and 6 recycled GT bottles that we're going to use for our bottling. And I sterilized them already, and we vinegar prepped them so they're all ready to go. One of the things that I use in almost every single batch is candied ginger. And this particular batch I got at an old-fashioned candy store in Old Sac, and it's amazing. It's delicious. It definitely adds a nice flavor to the kombucha, and it adds the natural sugar and the candied sugar that the kombucha needs to get that carbonated finish that we all love. So this is, again, candied ginger. You can also get it at Cost Plus World Market. I've seen it at Trader Joe's as well on occasion. So if you can't get a hold of the candied ginger, regular chopped ginger, fresh ginger is great as well. And I'm also using some fresh berries from my mother-in-law's amazing Southern California berry garden. Okay, I'm chopping the ginger into little bite-sized pieces. These are going to be put into our bottles. So I'm just going to put a little bit in each one, maybe like that much or so. There's no specific measurements for how much of this part you can add to your kombucha for the second fermentation. The first fermentation is more strict on ingredients and ratios. This part is not as much. Some people prefer to drink it plain. You could drink kombucha without bottling it. And some people prefer to add things to it. I've added naked juice. I've done, depending if my kombucha brew is strong for that week, sometimes I will add naked juice. Any kind of organic tea, organic juice is great in second fermentation bottling, depending on how strong your brew is. If you put non-organic things in your second fermentation, there's a possibility that it will not taste as good. Sometimes I've thrown in wine and beer and all kinds of things just for experimentation purposes. I've thrown in non-organic juices. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. A lot of times I'll get kind of an egg sulfur taste out of it, and it's just, I would definitely not recommend anything that's not a natural or organic additions to your kombucha. It just doesn't taste as good. Okay, so we're going to add our berries now. And I try to stretch these out because these are from our garden. Maybe like a small teaspoon or so for each bottle. And this, again, adds a flavor and a natural sugar to the brewing process in your second fermentation. So the tea, anytime you add natural sugars to your kombucha brew and then you bottle it, it ferments really nicely and creates that carbonation that we all love. As you can see, the kombucha SCOBY has floated to the top, and it's nice if the SCOBY is really thick. It'll seal in carbonation that will naturally happen over time. I do try and mix it up before I pull it out so I can get any of the yeast that is settling on the bottom. That also helps with carbonation. See, I got this stray SCOBY coming up too. So you can see some of the natural bubbles occurring. That's all natural carbonation, and it's so delicious. This is a mix of hibiscus and black tea. This is the same batch that we did in the previous video. See all those natural carbonation bubbles? So delicious. And I'm using this just to pour it in. These bottle caps were purchased online. They seal a little bit better than the recycled GT's bottle caps, but I do use both. The better your bottles and bottle caps, the better your carbonation will be. You really want to hold in that carbonation when you're fermenting in the second fermentation. After I finish bottling, I'll let these sit out in room temperature on the counter to ferment and infuse for another 2 or 3 days. I always check to make sure that they are not bubbling excessively. And if it's too warm, I may need to burp or gas them. And 1 gallon for me will make about 6 bottles. And the rest I will leave for my next batch. Okay, the last process of bottling is dating and labeling your bottles. So I like to do that before I put them out on the counter to keep track of, you know, when I made each brew, how old it is, how long it's been sitting on the counter. Okay, so I'm just going to put gingerberry 518. Thanks for joining me in bottling my kombucha. We'll see you next time.